We're back. I was away for a week, and then Heather was sick last week, so we haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah, we took a bit of a gap, but maybe that's all right. Sometimes you need to pause to have some
Totally.
other things in your life.
Absolutely. So the next webinar we have coming up is about systems thinking, navigating complexity in times of liminality, and that's happening at the end of this month.
Yeah.
So the stock market's crashing. All these economic
You want to start there.
systems,
You just want to go
yeah,
straight to that.
100%, right to it. Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
why beat around the bush?
Yeah.
It's just, you and I have talked about this for a long time. Like the systems of civilization, for lack of a better word, that we in the West have sort of clung to and developed, haven't served a lot of us for a long time. But
Yeah.
we've been really kind of stymied by not really having a clear grasp or good imagination for what could be next. And I know that this is something that you have been chewing on a lot especially since your exodus from social media,
Yeah.
and replacing that with lots of time by your favorite trees.
Hanging out with the trees and the
So
robins,
tell me, Heather, what
whales.
are the trees teaching you?
A lot.
Where's their
Yeah.
imagination leading you as far as systems that might replace?
Well, I want to start by saying, I know it's really scary to see these systems begin
Yeah.
to crumble. And so I think starting there is wise because I think we need to hold space for that fear and that grief and recognition that we have been told all of our lives that these systems were going to look after us. We've
Yep.
essentially been told that capitalism, if you behave well and follow the rules, capitalism's going to look after you and pay your bills at the end of the day. Systems are never built for compassion. Let's face it, human built systems end up, I mean, not that there can't be compassion in the systems, but a system like capitalism isn't built for care. And so at the end of the day, when it becomes malignant, when a system becomes sick at its core, the way capitalism has, because capitalism is built on never ending growth. It's just to sustain itself, it has to keep growing and growing and creating more and producing more and feeding the monster. And at some point, that has to fail, or else the whole world burns up because we're depleting all our resources. But in the meantime, we have this huge period of discomfort and chaos and all the things that we have to fear, and that's scary. And as we've talked about in the past, we lose our imagination at times like that because we go into amygdala hijacking where we're all in
Yeah.
fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and we get stuck there. It's like, "Ugh, I can't figure out how to move past this." And for me, one of the critical ways to move past this is we have to divest from some of these systems and invest in systems of care and invest in
Yes.
systems of regeneration. And some of that is rooted in, and we'll talk more about that in our next webinar, but some of that's rooted in how do we rebuild structures of community care? How do we build structures of reciprocal like caring for each other in the neighborhood, even like, okay, so I can't afford to buy the tools that I need for this task. What do my neighbors have access to? Because we're all suffering financially. And I remember one of the wisest things my dad ever taught me when I was a child growing up on a farm was I really, really wanted a horse. We had had a horse and the horse had died, and I wanted another horse. And we had no money on the farm. And dad says, I don't have any money, but I want you to have a horse. So I've got all these hay bales. See if you can find a farmer who will exchange hay bales for a horse. And so,
Hmm.
as a 12 or 13-year-old kid, I was scouring the farm papers, phoning up farmers and see if they would consider bales instead of money. And I got myself a horse. And I think more and more of us need to develop those kinds of capacities for building economies that are outside of a capitalist model, but also getting to know our neighbors to make exchanges like that. And then the other piece of that is, like you say, what are we learning from the trees? Well, trees are in ecosystems where there's continuous care in the system. And so the trees are like, they're all connected through the mycelium layer of the forest, all the trees, and they're
Mhm.
feeding each other, carrying the older trees or looking after the younger trees. They're communicating, warning of danger in the forest, warning of depleted resources. And then the trees are growing up and protecting through the overstory, the like creating shade for certain types of plants to
Mhm.
grow. They're all very much interconnected in that ecosystem. And then the tree eventually gets old, falls over, dies off, but becomes a nurse tree. It's now dead, but it's feeding, and for 100 years, this tree can lie on the forest floor and continue to nourish the forest. And then young trees grow out of that. And so you see these closed loop systems where they continue to feed itself instead of unhinged, unchecked growth in the forest. Something has to die off so that the next generation can come in and feed itself. And there has to be care built into the system. And I think if we learn to, and this is part of the reason, like you say, I got off social media to go out into the forest, partly because I recognized that my nervous system was overly attached to the craziness of social media. And to get off it and to sit with a tree is my way of re-engaging that imaginative part of myself that could see ourselves outside of these systems that are crushing us.
Mm.
So that's a little bit of my 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 soapbox speech from
I love it.
out
I
here in
love
the
it. And
forest.
shout out to Suzanne Simard. I just finished her book, Finding the Mother Tree, which I know has been really impactful
Yeah.
to you too, just in helping you re-envision some of this stuff.
Absolutely. And two other voices I will also mention that have also been really influential for me are Robin Wall Kimmerer, who talks a lot
Yes.
about this kind of reciprocal being in kinship with the forest.
Yeah.
And then Tyson Yunkaporta, who's an
Mhm.
Indigenous Australian writer who talks about alternative systems outside of the ways that we've built systems. And so, yeah, there have been a lot of those voices, and those who come to my webinars will get access to all of those references that we've been relying on for feeding
Yeah.
these pieces.
Yeah, definitely. So much good wisdom out there. And I think part of what we're hoping is that we can bring some awareness to these people who have already been talking a lot about these things.
Yeah.
This is not new to us. Like we're not the gurus here, but we have a platform in which we can help bring attention to some of this stuff and help
Well,
foster the
yeah,
imagination more.
exactly. And I think part of it is like to plug yourself into that collective
Yes.
wisdom too. It's
Yes.
like, when I read Tyson Yunkaporta or Robin Wall Kimmerer, I feel like my mycelium is being threaded to where their
Yes.
tree, they're almost, a form of mother tree for me in the forest because they're feeding me and hopefully it's reciprocal and I feed back into the forest. I may not feed them, but I'm feeding others in the forest. And that's how we build wisdom economies too
Yes.
of like first we have to slow down and like soothe our nervous system so we can engage in this meaningful relational space that is outside of a capitalist system.
Definitely. One of the phrases that I heard, and I can't remember the name of the person who brought this up, but it's the idea of the evolution of how did he word it? The evolution of collaboration. That we did not evolve out of competition. We did not
Yeah,
compete for resources and therefore evolved. We evolved out of collaborating with each other, with the
yeah,
world around us.
yeah,
And I've really sort of loved that because it to me it feels like an antidote to the competitiveness that capitalism has tried to insist is normal, even
yeah,
though
yeah.
it doesn't feel normal, I don't think, to any of us. Because if it did feel normal, we wouldn't be so activated all the
If we're
time.
honest with ourselves, it's not normal and
No,
we've been damaged by it for years. Like it's like
yeah,
soul crushing to live in that
it
capitalist
is.
system that
It
yeah.
is. It is.
And
So
that
yeah,
that
yeah, go.
I was just going to say that collaboration piece. I'll never forget reading Dan Pink's book Drive, and he talks about how we are actually, the research shows that we have much less drive attached to financial gain than by other. There's much more motivating factors for people to contribute passion
Yeah.
and one of the models that he talks about, he says, like, if I told you that there was one system of information gathering and dissemination and exchange and building of information that was completely volunteer based, and then I told you about another system that was gathering the same kind of information, but everybody in the system's getting paid and they're making decent money off it, which would still thrive in like 50 years? And he said, well, the answer is Wikipedia. Like, we don't have
True.
nobody's got encyclopedia. Remember, we used to all have the disc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before that,
Yeah.
we all had the encyclopedias on our
Yeah.
walls. And that was, that was rooted in the capitalist system, making money selling that information.
Yeah.
Somehow we've crowdsourced Wikipedia and made it the source of all this really good information. So we
Mhm.
do have the skills and we know how to build those kinds of models that work. Like, it's not like, and it's not second best either. It's not like
No.
this is a flawed model and this one is superior. It's not. Wikipedia actually proves to be probably one of the best sources of information, and it's built out of passionate people who just
Yeah.
really want to contribute good information to this source.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wild to think, hey?
Yeah.
So the imagination is there, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Really, it has
Yeah.
already existed. That's kind
Yeah.
of exciting too.
Well,
So
that's
we're
it. Like,
talking, yeah, right?
we can
Go
actually
ahead.
get really excited about this too. Like, it's not just, yes, things are crashing around us and it feels really, like I say, that's a scary thing to be in the middle of. But the
Yeah.
possibilities for actually feeling more fulfilled and alive and content and connected is there if we start
Yeah.
to imagine other kinds of systems.
And if we start to acknowledge that whatever privileges we have personally, that we can share those, that they're actually in abundance,
Yeah,
and we can help those who are maybe suffering more in some of these current systems
yeah,
without losing anything ourselves.
exactly.
That
And probably gaining
collaboration breeds
something.
collaboration, right?
Yeah. Because when, I mean, think about it, when you're really generous with a person, you end up benefiting from that
Totally.
exchange as well. Often, just as much as the person receiving the gift, because it's actually in our nature to to extend generosity and to be collaborative with other people.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So we're going to talk systems at the end of the month, systems thinking. We're going to get into more of this.
Yeah.
But we wanted to sort of weave kind of a hopeful narrative, because I think we're living in the unhopefulness of it. So it's good to sort of tap
There's
into,
so much of that online that we
yeah,
have to
so
sometimes
much.
intentionally get together and talk about things that are more hopeful and
That's right.
built in possibility.
Yeah. The what could be yet, what is still
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping for. And we're hoping that more people um, who start to see themselves as leaders, whether it be on big or small scales, will come and help us dream a little bigger,
Yeah.
and seed this stuff a little broader.
Yeah.
Tap into our mycelium networks. Something,
Exactly.
something.
If nothing else, we'll make good friends in the process. And
Totally.
I always think about I think I've referenced this before, but the movie Don't Look Up, where
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, but at the end of the movie, it's like, wow, we can't do much more but sit here and have a nice meal with people we care about. And at the end of the day, that's what we were engaged with, just trusting that at the end of the day, we'll at least have these relationships
Yeah.
of meaningful connection.
Yeah, and that's been one of the real blessings, even just of the study groups, is coming together and being like, okay, we're not alone,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we're here together for these moments. And yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
Exactly.
enough. It's
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
All right, come join us April 24th. Registration's open. Check out our website, centerforholdingspace.com/leadership for liminal spaces. We will see you there.
Yeah.